In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 NBA games happening on February 4th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start: if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Denver Nuggets versus New York Knicks. The Denver Nuggets head into Madison Square Garden to take on the New York Knicks on Wednesday night. The Denver Nuggets coming off losses to the Thunder and Pistons, with a date against the Bulls on deck, even though they have still taken 10 of their last 16 games. The New York Knicks just handled the Wizards and the Lakers. They see the Pistons next, and they roll into this one riding a 7-game win streak that has them feeling pretty good about themselves. The Nuggets are still without Aaron Gordon and Cameron Johnson, while the Knicks have already ruled out Miles McBride, with Josh Hart sitting in that frustrating day-to-day limbo. Denver has not really found its top gear lately, and those injuries keep nudging their ceiling down just a bit, even if their last 2 losses did come to 2 of the hottest teams in the league. There is no real time for sympathy though, because now they walk into a building where the Knicks have stacked 7 wins in a row and the crowd tends to sniff blood quickly. This is one of those matchups where checking the confirmed lineups before tip-off actually matters, especially with the Knicks dealing with that injury cloud. But even with that caveat, New York has been squarely in a groove. Honestly, it is tough to step in front of the Knicks right now, because they are not only winning, they are winning in a very repeatable way. Their surge is built on 2 pillars that travel well and that usually hold up under pressure. They defend without fouling, and they finish possessions properly. That combination is simple but cruel. They are not handing out free throws, and they are not giving away many second-chance looks, so they are not spotting their opponent cheat points, and they are not wasting many of their own chances either. Here is the thing: that approach quietly pushes the burden onto Denver. If the Nuggets want to hang around, never mind cover, they have to score efficiently in the half-court without expecting many gifts at the stripe or on the glass. On the road, that is a lot to ask when you are short some key pieces and facing a team that is comfortable grinding possessions and squeezing value from each trip. Then there is the market side of it. New York laying a decent number against a team with the Nuggets' reputation can look a little outrageous at first glance, and the natural reaction is often to assume the spread is too rich and automatically look the other way. Sometimes, though, when the number is that big, it is saying something pretty loud. Here, it is saying the Knicks are simply rated as the stronger team right now. Denver can absolutely come in and shoot well enough to make this interesting. Nobody is denying that, and if this does turn into a pure trading baskets affair for long stretches, their offense is good enough to hang around. But if their margin for success leans almost entirely on offense, in a tough building, against a defense that does not foul much and cleans the glass, that road gets narrow fast. The way New York is playing, they tend to create separation almost by default, just by giving away fewer points and cashing in more of the looks they already generate. That is exactly the type of script that usually lands on the right side of the number for them. I like New York to handle business at this short range and keep the momentum rolling in front of their home crowd. As our first pick for this matchup, the New York Knicks to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The scoring profile for this matchup tells its own story when you lay the numbers out. The Denver Nuggets are averaging 120.7 points on 49.6% shooting, while allowing 116.2 points on 46.8% shooting. They are hitting 39.5% of their shots from beyond the arc and 81.8% at the free throw line. They are allowing opponents to shoot 35% from deep, and they are pulling down 42.3 rebounds per game. The New York Knicks are averaging 117.5 points on 47% shooting and allowing 112.7 points on 46.2% shooting. They are knocking down 37.7% of their threes and 79.1% of their free throws. They are allowing 36.7% shooting from long range, and they are grabbing 46.3 rebounds per game. On the surface, those numbers suggest a lot of offensive punch on both sides, and that can tempt you to expect a fireworks show automatically. Here is where it gets a bit more nuanced. New York's recent run has been driven by that same defensive discipline mentioned before, defending without putting people on the line and closing possessions with rebounds. When a team stays home like that, you quietly shave points off a game. You are not gifting easy free throws and you are not allowing many second-chance buckets, so the overall scoring environment tightens, even if both offenses remain capable. Denver's efficiency can absolutely show up, but if each possession becomes just a little more contested and a little more deliberate against a locked-in defense, the game tempo can feel lively without the final tally exploding. It is also worth noting that both teams being reasonably secure on the glass, especially with the Knicks' edge there, can keep possessions more one and done than chaotic. That kind of rhythm often leads to solid scoring, but not necessarily a shootout, especially if the whistle stays relatively quiet on defensive fouls. So while the raw averages hint at a high total, the way New York is currently defending and the way they finish possessions points more toward a game that lands under the projected number rather than over it. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Minnesota Timberwolves versus Toronto Raptors. The Minnesota Timberwolves head north to Scotiabank Arena to face the Toronto Raptors on Wednesday night. The Timberwolves are coming in on a solid little run, having just beaten the Thunder, splitting a set with the Grizzlies, and with the Pelicans waiting for them after this one. They have taken 4 of their last 5 games, which gives them some momentum even if it has not always looked smooth. The Raptors, on the other hand, just lost to the Magic, bounced back with a win over the Jazz, and will see the Bulls next on their schedule. They have quietly stacked 13 wins in their last 21 games, which is not flashy, but it is steady enough to feel real. The Timberwolves could be short-handed again here, with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle both sitting on the injury report as questionable, while the Raptors remain without Jakob Poeltl in the middle. This is one of those spots where checking lineups before tip-off actually matters, because the status of Edwards and Randle will swing how this game is priced and how it plays out. And the Raptors with the points are at least interesting when you think about how Minnesota sometimes plays with its food and drops strange games that make no sense. We just saw a version of that against the Grizzlies, where focus slipped and the result followed. You also still see Edwards and Randle listed as banged up, which does not exactly scream stability. Here is the thing though, even with all that, the number feels light enough that it nudges you back toward the better roster. Assuming Edwards and Randle are in and reasonably themselves, Minnesota simply brings more high-end talent and more ways to attack, which squeezes the room you have to seriously consider Toronto over a full 48 minutes. The Timberwolves have been playing like it too, sitting at 4-1 straight up and 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 outings, which reflects both results and expectations lining up. They have their lapses, but when they lock in, they look like a group that should handle this kind of matchup more often than not. As our first pick for this matchup, the Minnesota Timberwolves to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Minnesota Timberwolves are averaging 119.3 points on 48.2% shooting from the field while allowing 114.1 points on 46% shooting on the other end. They are hitting 37.6% of their three-point attempts and 74.9% from the free throw line, while allowing 35% shooting from deep and pulling down 45 rebounds per night. The Toronto Raptors are averaging 113.9 points on 47.1% shooting and giving up 112.1 points on 46.1% shooting. They are knocking down 33.9% from beyond the arc and 77.4% at the stripe, while holding opponents to 34.4% from 3 and grabbing 43.2 rebounds per game. Those figures point toward 2 offenses that are capable of scoring in bunches, even if they go about it a little differently. Minnesota's efficiency, especially from the field and from deep, tends to keep their totals healthy whenever the pace does not grind to a halt. Toronto might not be as sharp from long range, but they shoot well overall, and they get enough touches and opportunities to keep the scoreboard moving. Here is where it gets interesting. Both teams are comfortable playing in a game where possessions do not feel suffocatingly slow, and neither side completely smothers the opponent given the defensive numbers. When you have one team sitting around the high 1 teens on offense and the other not too far behind, with both allowing triple-digit scoring, it naturally leans toward a contest where runs appear and the total keeps climbing. Rebounding numbers also help here because they suggest more chances in transition and more quick second looks instead of long, ugly empty stretches. Even if the whistle stays fairly normal and not overly generous, the combination of shot making and volume hints at a game that keeps the scorers busy. So while there can always be an off shooting night, the overall profile of both offenses and defenses together tilts toward a higher scoring outcome rather than a slow, low total grind. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. New Orleans Pelicans versus Milwaukee Bucks. The New Orleans Pelicans visit the Milwaukee Bucks on Wednesday night at Pfizer Forum. The Pelicans are coming off losses to the Philadelphia 76ers and the Charlotte Hornets, and they have the Minnesota Timberwolves up next on the schedule. They have dropped 17 of their last 22 games, which is a rough stretch no matter how you dress it up. The Bucks just fell to the Boston Celtics, bounced back with a win over the Chicago Bulls, and now look ahead to the Indiana Pacers after this one. They have lost 9 of their last 12, so it is not exactly sunshine on their side either. The Pelicans are still without DeJounte Murray, while the Bucks have already ruled out Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bobby Portis, Kevin Porter Jr., and Gary Harris. New Orleans had actually started to look a bit better before dropping those last 2 games, like a team finally finding a little warmth in a cold season. Milwaukee is stuck in its worst slump of the year and is doing it without 2 of its best players, which explains a lot of the gloom that seems to follow them right now. Only the Sacramento Kings have a worse record in the Western Conference at the moment than the Pelicans do, which really frames how low New Orleans sits in that half of the league. This will be the 3rd game of a 4-game road trip for the Pelicans, coming after those losses in Philadelphia and Charlotte, and that kind of schedule spot usually does not make a struggling team feel any more secure. Honestly, the whole situation around Milwaukee adds another layer. The Bucks played last night, the injury report is long, and there is that heavy cloud hanging over the franchise with everyone waiting to see if Giannis is traded. That kind of noise seeps into every conversation about this team. Even with all that going on, it is fair to wonder what exactly the Pelicans have done to be favored on the road against anybody right now. They have been flat out bad, and they are 5-20 straight up on the road this season, which is the kind of number that makes you wince if you are thinking about trusting them as road chalk. The joke that me, you, and 3 randoms from LA Fitness could give this Pelicans group a scare feels a little harsh, but you can at least understand where that emotion comes from when you look at their results away from home. The Bucks have taken 6 of the last 7 meetings between these teams, which shows that this matchup has tilted their way for a while now, even if the current version of Milwaukee is wobbly. I am not eager to lay points with New Orleans on most nights, and doing it with their road track record makes it even harder to swallow. So even with the injuries and the drama hanging over the Bucks, grabbing them as the side getting points feels more reasonable than trusting the Pelicans to suddenly flip a switch in this building. As our first pick for this matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Both of these teams have had disappointing seasons, but there is one thing in this matchup that has been reliable, and it does not have much to do with who wins. It has to do with how many points go up on the board when these two see each other. The Bucks just shocked a lot of people by beating the Bulls and hanging 131 points on them, which came right after back-to-back games where they could not even get to 100. That little swing sums them up lately, streaky on offense, but still capable of big scoring nights when things finally click. With the trade deadline coming up fast, all eyes are on Milwaukee as it tries to figure out what happens next with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Playing without him has been rough, and this offense has clearly struggled to put up consistent points when he is not out there, but the ceiling for scoring has not completely vanished, as that win over Chicago reminded everyone. Both sides have been bad overall this year, yet when these teams face each other, there has been one steady trend that keeps showing up, and it is in the scoring column. The over has hit 15 times in 18 recent meetings, and in the 10 most recent games between them, the average combined score has been 241 points, which is a big number no matter how you look at it. The current total has been set lower than those past results because of all the issues swirling around both rosters, from injuries to form to confidence, but that is exactly what makes the scoring angle so tempting. History between these two says games often open up, defenses spring leaks, and the offenses do just enough to push things higher than expected. So even with all the noise and all the uncertainty around both franchises, the pattern in their matchups points toward another game where the scoreboard gets plenty of work and the total ends up clearing that number. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Boston Celtics versus Houston Rockets. The Boston Celtics head to the Toyota Center to face the Houston Rockets on Wednesday night in what sets up as a sneaky, interesting matchup on the schedule. Boston comes in off wins over the Dallas Mavericks and the Milwaukee Bucks, with the Miami Heat waiting for them next, and they have taken 24 of their last 34 games, which is a strong long-term run by any standard. They are used to living in that contender space, so grinding through stretches like this is kind of their thing. Houston has some momentum of its own, coming off wins against the Indiana Pacers and the Mavs, with the Charlotte Hornets on deck. The Rockets have won 9 of their last 12, which is impressive for a group that not long ago was just trying to figure out how to be competitive night after night. The Celtics are still without Chris Boucher because of personal reasons, and they are keeping a close eye on the newly added Nikola Vucevic, which always adds a bit of uncertainty as rotations settle. On the other side, the Rockets remain without Steven Adams and Dorian Finney-Smith, but they are expecting to have Kevin Durant back in the lineup, which obviously changes the feel of their offense and the way defenses have to react. Given that setup, it makes sense that Houston comes into this one labeled as the hotter team, at home, and with the marquee star expected back on their side. You throw in the fact that Boston is playing the second night of a back-to-back, and on paper it almost looks like a classic spot where the home favorite should be in control. That is usually the first instinct, and it is not unreasonable. Here is the thing though, once you get past the surface, the number itself starts to feel a bit inflated. The Rockets are playing well, sure, but the Celtics are still one of the most reliable teams in the league over a big sample, and they know how to manage these short rest situations without completely falling apart. A back-to-back tests depth and discipline, and Boston has plenty of both even while they tinker with how Vucevic fits. It would not be shocking at all for Houston to make runs and have stretches where the building is loud and everything leans their way. But when you are catching points with a team that has won as frequently as Boston has over its last 30-plus games, it becomes easier to trust their ability to keep things close, even if they do not control the tempo from the jump. There is room for the Rockets to look like the fresher, more explosive side and still have this one come down to a couple of key possessions either way. That is where the appeal of backing the Celtics with the points really shows up, because a tight contest with late-game shot-making on both sides fits them just fine. They have enough experience and enough scoring to stay attached, even if the spot looks rough on paper. As our first pick for this matchup, the Boston Celtics to cover the spread as underdogs is our full-game side pick. The Boston Celtics are averaging 116.4 points on 47% shooting from the field and allowing 110.1 points on 44.8% shooting. They are knocking down 36.7% of their three-point looks and 79.4% of their free throws. They are allowing opponents to shoot 36.4% from deep, and they are pulling in 44.9 rebounds per game. The Houston Rockets are averaging 116 points on 47.3% shooting while giving up 110 points on 46% shooting. They are hitting 37% from beyond the arc and 75.3% at the free throw line. They are holding opponents to 34.5% from long range, and they are grabbing 49.2 rebounds per contest. At first glance, those averages suggest offenses that can put points on the board, but they also hint at defenses that are not completely leaky, especially on the perimeter. Both teams sit in a range where they can score efficiently, yet they also tend to hold opponents close to that low 100 band instead of letting every game spiral into a track meet. Here is where it gets interesting for the total. Rebounding strength on both sides, particularly with Houston cleaning the glass at a high rate, often means fewer second and third chances on broken possessions. That can limit the kind of wild, extended sequences that push scores into extreme territory. The shooting percentages are solid, but they are not the kind of extreme efficiency numbers that usually scream constant fireworks either. If each side is hovering around the mid-1 teens on average and holding opponents near that same range, it points toward a scoring environment that is healthy but not out of control, especially if there are stretches of half-court play and fewer easy transition buckets. In a game where both teams are capable but not reckless on offense, and where the defenses are good enough to force some tougher looks, the most reasonable expectation tilts toward a final tally that lands below the projected number rather than racing past it. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed. Subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them. So leave a comment down below and do let us know.